Welcome everyone. My name is Lin Phung. I'm a member of the ANPC, and just in case you don't know what it stands for Affiliate Network Professional Council. I have been on the council for over a year, and I'm also the chair of the committee for the year-round events. So after this event, we have more for you to come. So it's my pleasure to introduce the first session of the night, and the title of the session is Open Educational Resources 101 for ELT Leaders and Teachers. And it's our pleasure to have Chadia, Sharon, and Charity to present the session with us. And here's the description. ELT teachers are in need of open educational resources more than ever. In this presentation, the presenters will address the why, what, how of OERs. They also address the type of leadership needed for the adoption and implementation of OER and share an example of an ELT teacher-created OER textbook. So over to you, to the presenters, to introduce themselves a little bit more.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you very much. I'll start by sharing my screen here. Can you see my screen? Yes? Yep, perfect. So greetings, everybody. Thank you for your interest in open educational resources. And let me thank James and Lynn again for allowing this evening in open education to happen. This is very important to all of us, ELT educators. And we started working on this event at the end of November. There's a lot of work behind the scenes, as you can see. And kudos to James and Lynn for the hard work as well, and for the great collaboration. So we're delighted to be talking about OER again here with the this time with the ANPC. So if you're not familiar with the OER, then this presentation is a good start for you. But if you are familiar and you know about it, or if you're an affiliate leader, we thought of you as well, and we'll be sharing insights about the types of leadership needed to adopt and implement OER in your organization. And Charity at the end will share a concrete example of her own created textbook. We also brought to you this evening 3 more presentations, as James mentioned earlier. And you will have more on open access journal and 2 concrete examples of ELT teacher-led and created OER projects and materials. So thanks, James and Lynn and ENPC, TESOL International for hosting us again. So we'll kick off right now our first presentation of the evening, OER 101 for ELT Leaders and Teachers. And we hope to see you in the following also presentations. Stay with us tonight, tomorrow, and the day after the MPC. I'll have a little bit about myself. I'm Chadia Mansour. I'm a former Fulbright scholar in foreign languages, teaching in the USA, Virginia in particular. I have more than 17 years of teaching experience on different courses and fields, EAP, ESP, AAP, EFL, ESL, and internationally, Tunisia, my home country. I'm originally from Tunisia, in the United States for more than over 10 years, in Qatar as well. And I have been a former director of an ESP program in the United States. My areas of interest are distance education and online learning, and second language acquisition, and online pedagogy. I served in various TESOL international leadership positions, chairing the EFL interest section and the former diversity and inclusion committee, and nominating committee, to name a few. And I do represent actually the English as a foreign language intersection, the membership at large. All right, so let's talk about, for me, I will start my part with our vision. The vision that we've had so far for 4 years, which is to have, and we've been working on, to have a TESOL International OER repository. This is very related to the other affiliates. As we know, TESOL International has more than 120 affiliates, and TESOL International is the mother, that we call, of the ELT educators, and we here are calling for the affiliates to engage in this big project in the future. So you may be wondering, what is OER? We'll get there, but let me touch base on the why OER first. As we know, educational inequity is a reality, unfortunately, not only in the developing countries, but also the developed countries around the world. A sad reality, but it's a reality. So open educational resources is one among the many solutions that could help narrow the educational gap across the ELT communities. And TESOL OER repository is a solution to this educational inequity between developed and developing countries, and even among the many communities inside the developed countries themselves. So, and it's a solution that serves as a venue to support the under-resourced TESOL communities around the world. So a TESOL OER repository responds to the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization 2019 recommendations. There is a call from the UNESCO for OERs adoption and implementation for stakeholders, including professional associations, for them to take steps to advance OER initiatives. A TESOL hosted OER repository specifically supports these UNESCO's action items, and here I quote quotes from their document: building capacity of stakeholders to create access, reuse, adapt, and redistribute OER, developing mechanisms to create communities of practice, promote teacher professional development, create networks of experts of OER, and join in efforts on collaborative development and use of OER, as well as capacity building, repositories, communities of practice, joint research on OER, and solidarity between all countries, regardless of their state of development, and collaboration here in our context between all the 120 plus affiliates that care about ELT, right? It's not only the responsibility here for TESOL International, maybe it's the lead here, but we are all responsible, and the affiliates are crucial also to the advancements of the field. So our rationale here is for TESOL International OER repository as it responds to this UNESCO call to ensure inclusive and equitable education. And as you know, the latest great project and committee that TESOL International has engaged in regarding diversity and inclusion, and this would be a manifestation of concrete example. So by opening the space, I see Deborah smiling here, and I appreciate her presence. Yes, so we do would like to have this continuation of the efforts of the present leaders and the future leaders as well, to continue on the efforts that have been taking for achieving the TESOL international goals and the ELT in general field. So by supporting the housing and dissemination of OER, TESOL International Association will help in building inclusive knowledge communities and support quality education that is equitable, that is inclusive, that is open and participatory, as well as enhance academic freedom and professional autonomy of teachers by widening the scope of materials available for teaching and learning. So what are the benefits of OER? There are very numerous benefits here. As for the English language teachers, mainly in the under-resourced communities, they need free and open teaching materials that are easy to locate, easy to access and edit as well to fit their own context and needs. They need to be able to do so without fear of copyright infringement. And a separate OER tab would mostly benefit members and non-members globally. So TESOL can clearly set the parameters for the ELT OER guidelines and process and implementation. And TESOL should also ensure OER quality and sustainability of its use. So TESOL International would be a hub for under-resourced countries to access and download OERs and narrow educational inequity in the English language teaching field. So as far as the affiliates are concerned in here, since we're many and we highly regard your local context, your leadership, your needs, and as well as TESOL International as the mother association, our vision here includes to have one big umbrella of OER under TESOL International Association that everybody could benefit from, to avoid, duplicating and effort that is otherwise would be saved and put into one big project. So our vision is for TESOL to create and host an OER repository. And here, leadership is needed to implement such a vision through TESOL communities of practice within their different, more than 20, I believe, interest section. The IS is what we call, and more than 12 professional learning networks, the PLNs, to collaborate in order to create this OER guidelines and put a process in place to host OERs. Professional councils, such as here we have the affiliate network, we really appreciate that. And also the CAL-IS that we've collaborated with are examples of such a collaboration that we need. We need their help in designing this OER repository following other successful entities, such as BC Campus in Canada, eCampus Ontario. Canada is, as you can see, is leading in this open education movement, and looking at their goals and structure, how they think to members' need, link to members' need, their processes they use, the tools available to measure quality and effectiveness, and the ways that skill acquisition is documented for credentials. So bringing in OER expert to educate, engage, and empower members and non-members on creating quality ELT OER is also part of this vision that we have. And that can be done by hosting a series of webinars, annual convention panels and presentations. There would possibility it would be a theme in the convention, the OER theme that we can host proposals, create an OER proposal review committee to filter quality OER, ELT OERs and populate the repository. And then leadership to engage TESOL members on non-members as well, to create OERs to cater their own needs and the needs of the end-of-resource ELT communities. And of course, here bring in the affiliates. So if you're an affiliate leader, we invite you to think about it, to consider it, to reach out, to work together, all of us. For whether an online collaboration or in the process, for this process, or face-to-face in the annual TESOL International Convention, or both. And for now, I will stop here and I'll move to Sharon. She will talk about what our open educational resources are. Thank you. So I will stop sharing my screen, and Sharon will start sharing her own.
Okay. Just a second here.
Thank you, Barbara. And if you have questions, Lynn, I guess, is not really looking at the chat, but I will look right now. And we will have reflections later.
Okay.
Questions.
Okay, how does that look? Pretty good? Can you hear it, or can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent, okay. Because everyone disappeared. I hate how I can't see anybody anymore, so I trust that you're enjoying this. My name is Sharon Tjaden, and I'm suffering from the pollen falling out of the trees in the last 3 days, so excuse me if I cough every now and then. I'm currently an instructional media designer with Sinclair Community College in Dayton, Ohio. I have not always done that. I used to teach ESL and higher education, specifically in intensive English programs. I did that for 13 years and was a frequent, and still am a frequent presenter at TESOL International and my statewide TESOL affiliate, Ohio TESOL. I've really gotten interested in intercultural communication first because I coordinated partnerships between domestic and international students at US universities. And when I was put in charge of doing that, I thought, I don't, is there like best practices for this? And then find out, oh, wow, there's like a whole field devoted to just that. So I was very interested in intercultural communication for a period of time. And when I switched jobs, I found myself serving a different population of non-traditional students and started learning about OER and what it is. And when, when Chadia put out a call for volunteers to help on this project, I was like, well, that sounds just like something that I would be interested in. So that's how I found myself working with Chadia. I have served as newsletter editor for the ICIS for a couple of years. I actually co-edited with Andrea, who's on the call as well. And I'm currently the community manager. Excuse me. And do feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if you are into that. So I'm, excuse me, talking about what open educational resources are. The first thing that you need to understand about open educational resources is that traditional educational resources are all copyrighted once they are created. And this includes educational materials. It doesn't have to be traditionally published. It can be a lesson plan. It can be a PowerPoint that a teacher creates and uses just one time that is copyrighted. And so when Chadia is talking about making sure that materials can be freely shared, that's what we're talking about, is making sure that we put a Creative Commons license on it, which I'll talk about in the next slide, to relinquish some of those copyright protections. A teacher doesn't need to apply for copyright. They have copyright once they do it, once they create it. So what makes an educational resource open? There are 5 R's of open educational resources that OER scholars will refer to. And in order for it to be considered truly open, the educational resource has to have these things. The user must be able to retain the resource. That means that they can store it on a computer. They have to be able to reuse it, even if they make no changes to it at all. But they also should have the ability to revise the resource. And they also need the ability to put that resource alongside another resource, and also to redistribute the resource to others. And any PowerPoint presentation that you make and don't apply an open license to it, these cannot be done, these actions cannot be done without infringing on copyright. And so that's what brings us to what Creative Commons licenses are. Creative Commons licenses, once we put that on an educational resource, it tells the people who are using it, you are free to do this, this, this with it, depending on what the license is. These licenses are free. You can go to creativecommons.org and get a license for yourself for whatever material you're using. The most open licenses that you can use for your resources to make them available for other people to use, the 2 most open are CC BY and CC BY SA. SA means share alike. And both of those licenses allow users to download, revise, use, and share with others. There are other Creative Commons licenses that aren't necessarily considered open. So here are the most open licenses, CC BY and CC BY SA. There are other Creative Commons licenses. NC means non-commercial. So if you put that on your resource, you're saying nobody else can use it to make money. No, ND is no derivatives. So that means people can't change anything about what you've done in that particular resource. And then you can have non-commercial share alike, and also non-commercial no derivatives. So the most open licenses are CC BY and CC BY SA, And both of those allow teachers to relinquish copyright protections so that the materials can be used, downloaded, used, and redistributed to students and other teachers. Some forms of OER, like when we're talking about OER, what do we mean? Well, it could be textbooks. Charity is going to talk about a whole OER textbook that she's created that teachers can freely use in their class. If you can use it digitally, or but there is a cost to it. If you're printing it, you have printing costs, of course. So depending on how you use it, there still might be costs with using that material. Full courses can be OER. I know that the U.S. Department of State has some, what I think is called e-teacher. I can't remember exactly what it's called. Do you know what I'm talking about, Chadia? The American English e-teacher program.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what you said.
Yeah, and they have full courses that are, I think they're teacher education courses or teacher training programs. Anything that goes in those courses is OER. PowerPoint presentations can be OER. Your lesson plans, worksheets, even things like audio files and videos. Videos can be edited if you have the MP4 and you have a video editing software. It's not the easiest thing to do, but if you are able to edit video and you have a file and it has a CC license on it, CC BY or CC BY SA, you can still do that. And it can also be images, drawings, illustrations. There's lots of different forms that OER can take. So what I'm going to do now, I think I'm going to share the video directly instead of streaming it through YouTube through Zoom. So let me stop my share and then share that video directly. Oh, can I not? I usually can. I might have to because I don't see that option under advanced right now. All right, we're going back. So in this video, what I do is I take you through a walkthrough of how to take a PowerPoint slides that you've created and turn it into an OER that you can share with other teachers. Okay, I'm going to show you how to turn a PowerPoint lesson that you've made for a class into an open educational resource that any other teacher can download and modify and use in their class. So the first thing that I'm going to do is open up a PowerPoint presentation that I've already done, and I'm going to review it to make it appropriate for other teachers to use. So the first thing that I see here is that I need to get rid of any identifying marks for the class that I have included on here that's not going to be helpful to another teacher. So the title of the class or the institution or the school or your name, all of those identifying marks need to be taken away. The next thing that I'm going to look at is I noticed that I don't have any learning outcomes yet, and those are pretty important for someone who's looking at this fresh. So I'm going to add a slide here to do that. So when I revise this, I'm going to make sure that I add learning outcomes here so that another teacher can understand how this can be used in their classroom. I also noticed that I need to add some information here about the intended audience, the level, the age range, and the teaching context for this particular lesson. So I'll make sure to add that information here as I am doing my revisions. So now I'm going to do a quick overview of my slides to make sure that my content and my practice are balanced. So I see I have, interesting. I know this is about sentences too. So what I need to do here is add another slide that gives an overview of everything that's within this lesson so a teacher can easily see that. All right, so content and practice, making sure that they're balanced. So I see that here's content, more content, a key point, and then here I have a practice slide. So how about, I have about 3 to 5 slides of content, then I have a practice slide. Then I have another overview slide, some content, and then another practice slide. Although I'm noticing that I used a different heading on this one, so I need to make sure that that is the same as the last one. And I'm also reviewing my language here to make sure that my language is helpful to any teacher across the world. So I don't want anything too specific or too culturally specific that it can't be used by somebody else. These look okay. This one also needs to be changed. And then I see I have 2 more slides of content here. However, I'm noticing that these examples here are too specific. They deal too much with my specific institution. So I'm going to have to change those so they're more appropriate to use across cultures and across time. So I have a number of content and practice slides. But what I'm missing at the very end is some kind of final assessment for students to understand if they understood most of the main points in this presentation. So I'm going to make sure that I add that as well. I also need to make sure that I add a Creative Commons license to this so it's clear to other teachers that they're able to download and change and use this as they'd like. And I also need to add metadata. Okay, so I'm going to point out my changes that I've made here. I've added my proficiency level, my suggested age range, and my teaching context. And you can also see that I've included my Creative Commons license. Down here it includes my name and the kind of Creative Commons license that I'm using, which is the CC BY 4.0. And I also have that link so that if anyone is unsure about what that license means, that they can go to that link and see what they're able to do with it. I have my learning outcomes that are clearly defined. I've also added, instead of using the pictures that I had here before, those were not Creative Commons images. I couldn't find any that I really liked, so I decided to just use an icon here. You can use icons in PowerPoint by going to Insert and choosing Icons. There's lots of different icons that you can use without any problems. I chose to do the same thing here. I added an icon here. For that page where I had examples that were too specific, I used some more general language here that would apply to other people outside of my specific situation and context. And then finally down here at the end, I have my final assessment for students. I have clear directions about what they need to do. And then in the next slide, I have my example sentences. And then on a final slide, I have the answers for students to check themselves. And so at this point, I say that this is pretty ready to go to make it available for other teachers to use as an open educational resource. So I would make sure that you save it. And to add your metadata, you're going to go to more options, and then underneath tags, you're going to add any words or phrases that you think a teacher might be searching for to find this kind of content. And so there are the tags, the metadata that I've included for this particular presentation, so that when teachers are looking for this, they can easily find it in their search. When you're choosing what file type to save your PowerPoint presentation as, I recommend using PPTX. This will make sure that any other teacher who downloads this file will be able to go ahead and edit it and change things in the way that works best for them. So I hope that this was helpful for you to make your PowerPoint lessons into open educational resources for other teachers to use. It's such a great thing to do, and I highly encourage you to do it. Okay. Oh, well, stop share. Maybe that's what I have to do to get rid of it. I tried to do the exit and it's not. There we go. All right, back to the screen. Okay, so we can share this Google Slides presentation with you as well, so you can have these hyperlinks that we're sharing in our slides. That link will take you to that video if you want to review it later. And also, I've made those slides about independent clauses. I've made that an actual OER that you can use in your class if you want, and you can access that through that link here. Nope, not what I want. There we go. Okay. So I wanted to take some time now to think about kind of the things that I've talked about, maybe some of the things that Chadia has talked about. And I want you to do just a little bit of reflection. As we all know, reflection can be extremely important to helping you connect what you're learning about to your actual practice. So let's take about 5 minutes, and it's okay if we're quiet, and just jot some notes down about these questions here. I'll set a timer for 5 minutes, and I'll gently interrupt you in 5 minutes.
Sharon?
Yep.
Shall we proceed in here?
I was giving people time to think.
Okay. I think Blanca saying use examples that could suit different cultures.
I'm sorry, Chadia, what did you say?
I'm reading Blanca saying using examples that could suit different cultures.
Oh, there's chat. I can't see the chat.
And Loretta is saying remove materials that are very specific to your culture and situation.
Ah, okay. Yeah. Sorry, I'm.
Okay, and
Yeah, these are good.
make sure to include objectives from Gunul.
Yeah.
Remove personal information. Yes.
Kind of like when I had the Miss Sharon and Miss Jerry. Yeah.
Okay. Shall we move with the charity, and then we'll have more time for people to add things? Yeah, okay. Oh, we've got more in here.
Do we want to talk about Grazia's comment about copyright is still a foreign notion in many places?
Yes, copyright is it's a very important. It's one of the main objectives of OER as well, other than being open and responding to inequity, is also given the right for copyright for the material of the person who created the material. So if I want to use your material or change it or adapt to my own context with the CC BY, then I have to give credit to you, other than just using it.
Something that I'm seeing, like with the making the language appropriate, when Chadia and Charity and I were drafting some guidelines for, or reading about guidelines for OER, we were reading in UNESCO's report or white paper about OER, that the importance of inclusive language and considering how to make your materials accessible to all learners. And I think that that's something that sometimes still gets left out. That is hard because sometimes you can't, if you're not used to getting outside of your own head, you know, so it's probably a good practice to have somebody else look at your materials before you really put them out there.
Yeah, there are documents for assessment, OER assessment. If you're interested, we can share with that. We have a draft of guidelines for this project for TESOL. You have a very long document that includes this assessment for OER, and one of the documents helps you like a rubric style, and it's also recommended to consult with others who are familiar with OER for a second, you know, pair of eyes. And we did include in the draft of guidelines so far the very importance of inclusive language and non-discriminatory, non-sexist, you know, all of that, to be respectful for everybody. And for that, we are suggesting, you know, it has to be gone through filtering before being accepted. So, and that's part of the process of that we are seeking, you know, that affiliates help in that, and discussions and collaboration on that to come up with a process that would facilitate this acceptance of OER within the repository in a way that is quality and a way that is not discriminatory, and, you know, in terms of the language that is used as well. All right, I think we should move on with the charity.
Yeah, I think so. I think,
thank you very much.
Charity, do you want me to advance your slides, or do you want to do it?
I guess you can.
Okay.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Charity Davenport. I am an instructor at the English Language Institute at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. And I've been teaching there since 2008, so close to 13 years now. I have a master's in TESOL, but I'm also currently working on a second master's in instructional technology, and hopefully I have one more class. I will be graduating this summer. So one of my big interests is open pedagogy, which involves using OER to improve our teaching. I have also, as Sharon mentioned, published an open textbook called It's All Greek to Me, which I'll be talking about later, about kind of like my process. How did that happen, making a whole book? And also a website with resources called Writing with Grammar. And Liz mentioned like what are some of the benefits for teachers, and one of them is winning grants. So I did get some money for creating my OER textbook. So I'm going to be focusing on where can we find some of these materials. So Sharon talked about how to do it from scratch, but a lot of my textbook is just finding and collecting stuff and putting it together for my own purposes. So I think one of the problems that a lot of instructors say is it's hard to find OER. There are so many different places to go and repositories, and that's true. But I have found most of the materials that I have used and found have been from just a Google search. By going to the advanced settings, and then at the very bottom, it has usage rights, and then you change it to Creative Commons licenses, and it will find if you want text, if you want images, if you want video, it will find hopefully all of the ones that have Creative Commons licenses. I will also say, when you find those materials, confirm on that page that it is in fact Creative Commons licensed. Don't just take Google's word that it is. Always make sure that it is. So first, for pictures, Flickr has a lot of good open license pictures, and similar to Google, it also has like a little search, advanced search, where you can find Creative Commons pictures. Also, the no known copyright restriction means that it's part of the public domain. Also, US government works are also in the public domain. So there are a lot of pictures that you could use on Flickr. One of the licenses that we didn't really talk about is CC0, which basically means the author has donated their work to the public domain. Unsplash, Pixabay, and Pexels have really good kind of like stock photo-ish images that are free to use. And Smithsonian Open Access also has a lot of like museum stuff, museum photos that you could use. And as we talked about before, as soon as you create something, it is copyrighted. So that includes photos as well. As soon as you take a picture, that is your photo. You have the copyright. So that also means you have the ability to give it a Creative Commons license. I always give the caveat of, don't just take a picture of like something copyrighted, like a document or something, and then say you have the copyright for that. But in general, if it's in public and you take the picture, yeah, you can do whatever you want with those photos. Icons and clip art. I like icons and clip art because they're so cute. I like to decorate my materials with them. Noun Project, all of their icons are CC BY, so they're openly licensed. However, if you have a paid subscription, which I do, you don't have to have any kind of attribution. Flat Icons has more colorful icons than Noun Project. They're also licensed CC BY. And then Open Clip Art has public domain clip art that can be used. There's also, Sharon showed me this also interesting one, the CVG SIL, which also is public domain, and there are public domain vectors as well. These are kind of more editable. You can change the colors, and you can, if you know how to edit vectors, then they're more editable than the other ones.
Do you want me to show that one, Charity? This one here?
Yeah.
Why not? It won't take very long. So when you go there, let's say you're searching for an arrow and you have arrows here. You can change them by colors, all of them. Oh, I touched the wrong thing. Don't touch the wrong thing. And then it'll change automatically to different colors, whatever you, and then you can also do like this deal where, oh, that's too light, that's too dark. Oh, I like that one. And then it'll automatically update. And they got some cool ones there. And then you can download it in different formats. Okay. Back to you.
Yeah, I'm ready for the next slide.
Oh, sorry. Isn't this fun?
So for text, I think a lot of people use Wikipedia, but I don't think most of them know that Wikipedia is an open resource. It is licensed CC by SA, so you can take that text, you can edit it, you can republish it and put it somewhere else. I think Wikipedia is kind of hard to read, so I think it's perfect to be able to maybe take some text that you like, but be able to edit it to make it more readable for students. The Conversation is a news website that I really like. All of the articles are written by academics, but it's still kind of like breaking news, like important things happening. The only thing I don't like is it's Creative Commons, but it's not openly licensed. It has that ND license, meaning I can't edit it, but we can still share the articles with students. Open Democracy is also a similar website. Project Gutenberg has public domain books, full books. Usually that means books that were written before 1927, I think. A lot of my texts that I have in my open textbook is from Project Gutenberg. But because it's public domain, even though it's really old text, I'm able to update it and edit it so that it's more modern. And then for professional development, I like EdTech books. Again, it's a lot of like textbooks that teachers can use. It's focused a lot on like educational technology, but there are also some like ESL and second language acquisition, professional development books in there as well. For more textbook stuff and class materials, including some of those open courses, there are so many different sources. MIT OpenCourseware, Lumen Learning, Open Textbook Library, OpenStax, OER Commons, LibreText, Merlot. There are a lot of different places, a lot of different repositories. But again, I'm pretty sure if you use the Google search, it will still find these materials from these other repositories.
Maybe this might be a good place to talk about what these don't have. Do you know what I mean, Charity?
What do these don't have?
A lot of great ELT materials.
Yeah, that has been a problem. And yes, I think totally that is one of our goals. Is part of the problem is there are a lot of OER, but not a lot for second language learning for English.
English language arts, yes, right?
Yes. Yeah, so yeah, that's why I'm so interested in this, is because I'm hoping we can be the ones to start making more ESL related materials. Yeah, that's true. And last, for audio, I like to use these when I'm making videos so that I don't have like copyrighted music in my videos, or if I wanted to make like an animation and I need some sound effects, there are some free to use and openly licensed audio. Free PD and Jamindo have like background music that you can use. Sound Bible and Freesound have sound effects, and they have different, each one has different licenses. So again, just pay attention to which license. And then LibreVox is basically like the audiobook version of Project Gutenberg. They have audiobooks for public domain texts. And yeah, I think that's it. So yeah, this time for our reflection, and then I'll also go in the chat and see if there's some questions I can answer. But yeah, what forms of OER do you think would be the most helpful for your teaching? And number two, what kind of content or what kind of topics would you find, would you most likely be able to want to look for when searching for OER?
So we have about a few minutes here if you'd like to write on the chat, or if you want to use your mic, feel free to do so as well.
This time I'll actually
for
look at
more interactivity. We'd like it to be interactive. We don't want to make sure it's almost 8 p.m. so we don't fall asleep in here, right?
Someone's asking, can you please show us how we can search? Do you mean like search on one of these OER repositories? Probably. Yes, you'll get the slides. We're going to put the link in the chat when we're finished.
Welcome, Glenda.
Thank you so much for the information. It's so helpful. I am listening to it for the second time, and I'm still taking notes because the resources, it's just so great. I did take notes of some of the questions, and people are still commenting in the chat. But the first question that I would like, I know, Charity, you addressed it a little bit, but maybe I will ask it again. What are the benefits for teachers who produce OER? It seems like it's obvious that it's beneficial for us to search for these materials and use them. But if we would want to encourage teachers to create these, then what are benefits to them? Because perhaps having grants is not something too common.
So yeah, I think I was saying like more important to me, one of the best benefits is it was kind of like I'm making a textbook with my students, and I'll be talking more about that later, but they really like being involved in the process. They think it's super cool that their teacher is making a book, and that, you know, their opinion and their ideas matter in, you know, the creation of this thing. In fact, my answer key for the book is basically being crowdsourced by the students' answers. I tell the students, hey, if you've got really good answers, you know, can I put those in the answer key? And I think it made them work harder to make sure that they had correct answers. They wanted, their answers to be in the answer key. So I've never had more fun than when I teach with my textbook.
I would also, Lynn, I would also say to those teachers that it makes you a stronger teacher when you're able to walk through the process. I mean, you have to reflect a lot on, all right, I'm going to step back and look at this thing that I've made and really think about who is it for? What am I trying to accomplish? Do I have assessments that align with the things that, with the learning outcomes? So I think that it makes you a stronger teacher to walk through that process of turning something that you've created into something that can be used by a larger audience. And I would really, really love to see OER being taught in teacher education programs, because it's not that I can see, but if we can make that part of teacher education programs, I mean, built into it is that reflective component that we want teachers to have. So that's what I would say about what's the benefit for them. It makes them a stronger teacher.
Thank you. I might have thought that your presentation ended, but stay with us. There's more to come, and I'm sure that more answers will be addressed as well.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah, I will add one more thing to the teacher benefits. The word benefits connotates with something that you can have in return, right? But here, which makes sense, you know, we do things, we expect something back most of the time, but here we are with the theme of open education, with the theme of educational equity, with the theme of collaboration, with the theme of teachers being together, with the theme of associations being there for teachers, and associations collaborating for being there for the whole field and the ELT communities. That is the biggest benefit, I believe. I strongly and personally believe in myself. And today we had as we are promoting, and James, for the ANPC network, Dr. Nelly Deutsch, one of our previous speakers in OER, saying on the chat, unfortunately, many teachers are not still there yet to understand that OER already to give something without getting something back, right? Because it takes, and one of her presentations, she talked about the fact that how does it really happen? It takes a mindset of collaboration among teachers for this to happen. And this is what TESOL International has been, you know, advocating with the fact of having the ANPC itself. That is the first step, calling for collaboration within all the affiliates, calling for collaboration within the COPs, within those affiliates and among them. That is the biggest benefits. We're here for one another. We're here for the field, for the teachers, for the students. That's what OER is. Yeah. It's for the good cause.
Right? Okay, I think we're moving on. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna
You're
share
sharing
my
now,
screen.
right?
Yep. Yeah. So I'm gonna.
Oh, there everybody is.
And with that, thank you so much for you know, you're being patient in here and being with us and interacting with us on a Friday afternoon. And for those who are in the morning, yay, good for you. So now we're going to move on to the leadership strategies or styles, I'm going to call them types, or grounded in leadership theories, as a matter of fact. What we're proposing here is an innovative solution that acknowledges and respects that there's no one size fits all for leadership. So it won't be only one, but there are different ones that will be needed within this journey of adopting OER by an association. So what we're proposing are several phases for this OER repository project: a pilot phase, a transition phase, an implementation phase, and an ongoing phase that never ends. These require multiple leadership strategies. The first one is the transformational leadership, and the second is the transformative leadership, and then distributed and emergent leadership strategies. So we'll talk about them one by one. So we'll start about the transformational leadership. So as I mentioned earlier, our vision for creating this repository for TESOL International requires these different types of leadership for the execution of such a project. Transformational leadership here is crucial for any change. And this is a change, as I just talked a little bit earlier, the idea of being ready or not. It's a big change to adopt an OER that requires a lot of effort, that requires awareness, that requires collaboration. And for that, it requires transformational leadership. Transformational leaders would embrace the OER vision and support any effort that would lead to such a change, both ways, from the top down, from the presidents, the board of directors, to the bottom up, such as members like Chadia, Sharon, and I. We're simply acting like TESOL International members right now. We're not holding any leadership position at the moment. So the intersections have so many COPs within them. and they showed interest in OER, like the call IS, for instance. We also involve the professional councils in joining efforts in leading such a change, as well as the COPs. So the three of us have been acting for the last 2 years as a COP, very small one, but we are a COP of Emergent from TESOL International. So transformational leaders are role models for lifelong learning in their drive to effect change. They value others. The leadership is provided through a framework of multiple resources. They provide the resources in here, and they become servants to others. Their ideal is, this transformational leadership is ideal for the OER pilot because these leaders will champion the change in the organization as opposed to resist change. So despite the challenges of rotational leadership in TESOL, we have gained the support of several transformational leaders, the current ones, some of the previous ones, and some of the current ones that showed they're willing to serve the under-resourced communities by guiding us on pathways and providing insights and making us aware of the very potential challenges within the association as well that the association is facing to make such a repository a reality. So we really thank those who supported us, and we're hopeful that the upcoming leaders will be transformational as well as the ones that we have right now. Our recommended leadership for the transition phase is the transformative leadership, which is characterized by social justice, by democracy, and initiatives that serve both the individual and the public. And this is what OER is about. Transformative leadership is starting point to adopt the vision of transformative change to meet educational equity and to inspire the membership and leaders at the top level for TESOL OER. So TESOL is the voice for many ELT teachers and learners, and we have the TESOL Advocacy Summit every year. We have so many other great efforts for that. So there's no doubt that TESOL is the voice for many ELT teachers and learners. So this TESOL advocacy is rooted in responding to unjust and inequitable practices in the field of education. And as we shared, the OER repository project will be used to create change in terms of the type of resources shared with members and non-members, with a special focus on the under-resourced countries and communities, and therefore rooted in social justice. However, the actual execution of the project requires more involvement from the different communities of practice again, the ISs and membership at large and the affiliates. Another call for the TESOL affiliates here. So both distributive leadership and emergent leadership as well are needed to support the OER repository initiative at TESOL, in addition to the transformational as a start and the transformative inspired by social justice. So in distributive leadership, there is the potential for individuals at all levels of the organization to engage in leadership roles. As collaborating on tasks allows for distribution of knowledge needed for the project, which will lead to the organizational development. So here, the pandemic has shown that the power of the online platforms that here on Zoom, for instance, and these events, and is a great example of manifestation of distributive leadership, as many teachers and professionals work online together. But we have to be aware of the cons of distributive leadership, such as that it might be difficult to coordinate tasks led by many leaders in one organization. However, it has the potential for more member engagement in organizational change and sustainability of leadership. So one element that can help distributive leadership work is its flexibility, which can be supported by emergent leadership. The flexibility of right now, an example, all of us together being on Zoom, different time zones, we don't have to travel, we don't have expenses just to make it to such an event. It's very flexible, like the ANPC and us, working on from November all the way to now to make great sessions like today, and then working for months to make the 3-day event, right? a long time together. That's a distributed leadership across, their ANPC and outside of the ANPC. So within that, more leaders emerge, and that's why we call them emergent leadership, which is defined as leadership that occurs when an individual who has not been assigned the formal leadership role assumes leadership within a group. So individuals who possess leadership traits that fit to the particular setting, they tend to emerge as leaders within their groups. Resistance might arise sometimes if the setting is grounded in more formal approaches to leadership. But flexibility that can be achieved by emergent leadership is a key for the organization to respond to various changes in society, which is in our case, the development of OER to support under-resourced ELT communities. So the three of us represent a good example of emergent and distributive leadership. When I say the three of us, is myself and Chadia and Sharon, as we're not assigned a leadership role by the association, but we're simply members of TESOL International that have a shared vision that connected through my TESOL and maintained online collaboration as we work towards advocating for TESOL and for TESOL OER repository. So note that we have not met face-to-face as yet. We've been working for 3 years together. We never made it.
I think that's so crazy, Chadia, isn't it?
I know, right? Well, the pandemic is there, but we're looking forward for Pittsburgh and the TESOL International that, gathers all of this in one place. That's the beauty of the face-to-face convention. So in our journey for TESOL OER, and in the general context of the association, we've been acting as emergent leaders, where we join forces and we support and lead one another in tasks that we have undertaken for such a project. And we've got 2 more people who believed in OER and reached out to us and joined our efforts. And they are indeed the 2 next following speakers, Eric and Steve. So we'll welcome them to the group, and we appreciate them being here today to talk about OER and share their projects. So another thing that OER, leaders need to be aware is the TESOL OER ontology, right? They will need, in addition to the vision, leaders need to be aware and have a good understanding of the ontologies for the OER. And leaders at all levels need to be educated in open resources, and in particular, what open means. What is open? So the open educational resources indicates that these materials are licensed, as we mentioned, with copyright licenses that provide permission for everyone to participate in the 5R activities that Sharon talked about: the retain, the reuse, the revise, the remix, and the redistribute of material. The open pedagogy as well outlines 3 sets of foundational values of open pedagogy. Here, the autonomy and the interdependence. Also the self-regulated learning, especially here related to, since we're talking about online material, right? The freedom and responsibility, as well as the democracy and participation. So some of the themes we will recognize are the individualized learning, the learner choice, the self-direction. All of this is part of the open pedagogy. And the leaders also need to be aware of the OER-enabled pedagogy. As I mentioned earlier, the DC campus is a very good reference to educate leaders about enabled pedagogy, mainly providing real ELT examples. One of the very great ELT examples is the DC campus. So OER Creative Commons ontology is related to licenses, and the OER ontology is crucial mainly for the distributed and emergent leaders involved in the creation of OERs and the design of the repositories. So if we need more leaders, if we need more members and non-members to be involved in this, which, as I just explained, we will have distributed leadership enactment, right? And we will have emergent leadership revelation within that process. We need to educate our members about these, terminologies and these concepts for them to be efficient and for them to be able to collaborate and proceed with this project. However, as some of the current transformational and transformative leaders of TESOL International, I mentioned Deborah Healy. I really have to give her a big thank you for her support within the guidelines, drafting or emails or reaching out to us or connecting us with people and discussing and some of the issues. There are issues. This is not an easy project. We are aware of that, but we believe that all of us together and with the affiliates involvement, thank you ANPC for bringing everybody together, this could be a reality. The first problem would be the infrastructure of ICT, which is information and communication technology. So we found some possible solutions though, and we're exploring more and even try to talk to database people, charities, doing a great job in connecting us to this. So either on Google Net or mobile OER, we thought, because there is here, we're talking about OER as an information gap and inequity issue, but there is also the digital gap that is very, very apparent worldwide. Not everybody has access to the internet. Not everybody has access to computers like we have right now. But the majority, even within the under-resourced communities, if they would have mobiles, right? And mobiles with data for mobiles or hubs where they can connect. They go somewhere, like you go to a shop or a store, it's a hub where you can connect, you pay a very minimal fee, and then you download. So that would be the most, I believe, efficient and reasonable for those particular communities and under-resourced countries that are strictly suffering from the digital gap, mobile OER. So the number 2 issue is the sustainability of leadership. So it takes time for transformation. So we need sustainable leadership, which will be realized through integration of multiple leadership theories, such as the distributive and emergent. And as I mentioned earlier, within the 3 years right now cycle of TESOL, for me 5 years, I have 2 years with previous cycle of leaders and 3 years with the current ones. There is progress, and TESOL International is aware of the diversity and inclusion issue and doing a great job in implementing those and making steps forward. And with this current leadership, there have been tremendous projects going on and a great open mind, and not only to listen, but actions. And we do believe that the incoming leaders, at least for this coming cycle, as Joyce and Gabriella and Joyce, and the nominating committee also is doing a great job in selecting this leadership as well for TESOL. We do believe that the sustainability is going to continue as we see the support coming from them. The third issue, though, is research on OER, right? The number 1 question is many still do not know about OER, so OER is still young. So there are so many gaps to be filled in research itself when it comes to OER and the number 1 quality of OER as well. But as Sharon shared her own very simple example of PowerPoint, we teachers know how to come up with create a lesson plan that is based on learning outcomes, that is quality for our own teacher, for our own learners, and we can do quality. Who said that teachers don't know, and who said who teachers are not willing to share, right? Teachers are overworked. If you disagree with me, just raise your hand. I wouldn't be mad, but we are overworked because we care, teachers care, and teachers do their best to create more material for whatever it takes for their own students. So what we're proposing here, it's not really as big as it, OER, it's like a ghost. No, you already create things for your own classes. you already have them ready. Just take some, you know, the Sharon's here tips and the charity tips for the online searches, the CC license, and you come up with somebody, you know, something that other teachers and the resource communities will benefit from. You will allow them, you know, to give you credit, and you allow them to change it to their own context as well, or use it as it is, you know, in a very nutshell, simple idea of OER. And with that, I will have a few questions for you. For my part, how can you participate in or encourage distributive leadership in your organizations? And how has your organization experienced emergent leadership? Or how can you encourage emergent leadership in your organization? If you are an affiliate leader, or if you just would like to share with us or give advice to affiliate leaders, please feel free to put down in the chat or just use the mic. Just talk. Yeah. How can you participate in or encourage distributed leadership in your organizations? Well, how has your organization already experienced emergent leadership or encouraged emergent leadership in your organization? Yeah, any volunteers here? Yeah. So we are at 8:12. So I think I will give you these questions. I'll move on to Charity to talk about her textbook. And once she's done, we'll have time, then we can go back to these questions or other questions that you have. Okay, so I will move your slides, Charity. Is that okay? Okay.
Okay. All right, I'm back, everybody. It's me again. So yes, I really like that Chadia ended with, you know, it sounds like, and everyone tells me that it's crazy that I have a whole textbook, but really, I think probably every teacher has created enough materials from scratch to also make a textbook. I'm just lucky that I was able to kind of collect enough stuff about the same topic. And so it seems like it's overwhelming, but I think my overall takeaway here is just I did it piece by piece, step by step, and just used what I collected and edited and worked with my students to improve and just put it all together. So here's the, I say finished, but it'll never be finished. But here's what I have right now. My OER textbook is in Pressbooks, and I have the website here. Yeah, IAGTM, it's all Greek to me, .pressbooks.com. And my textbook is basically using Greek mythology to study English and vocabulary, and especially explaining some vocabulary and phrases and idioms that we get from Greek mythology. Yeah, so yeah, go to, yeah, this slide, me and my book. So basically it just started because I heard some kind of word. I probably heard something like opening Pandora's box, or that was tantalizing or something. And I was like, hey, doesn't that come from some Greek mythology story? And I've studied Latin for a long time. And so I was like, hey, I really want to dig into like how many of these kinds of words do we get from these stories? So I did some research. I found that we have a lot of this vocabulary and words. So usually in my classes at our IEP, which I think is pretty common for IEPs, we are assigned a textbook. We have to use that textbook. but I really like novels. I think literature is an academic thing that students should study to help improve their reading comprehension, their critical thinking, and their vocabulary. So I've always had problems teaching using our required textbook and then also having us read like a whole novel. There's just not enough time. There's not a lot of connection. So what I started doing was I would teach with our assigned textbook, and then we'd do some of these stories that I collected, these Greek mythology stories. Because they're short, then I don't have to worry about running out of time. But I didn't really have enough time to really focus on those stories. So I did get a lot of flack from our director that I should be using our assigned textbook, but I basically just started working with my collection of works here. And kind of the way we met in the middle was I started incorporating academic articles and readings that were related to the stories. So for example, Narcissus is a character in a Greek mythology story. We get the word narcissism from this story. So then we would read the story about Narcissus, and then we would read an article about, an academic article about narcissism. So that resistance that I got actually kind of led to doing something more creative, using that constraint to kind of do something more creative. And at the beginning, yeah, I was kind of like Lynn said, I made a course packet. I had all these stories that I photocopied from illegally from different places. I made my own vocabulary exercises. I photocopied pictures, and I was like, this doesn't feel right. I know I'm doing something wrong by just taking bits and pieces from different places, and it's not my own. And yeah, they're from children's books, and children's books are really difficult for IEP students to read. It's really surprising. So I was like, I know there's public domain. If I get public domain stuff, I can edit it. I can make this more engaging for my students. I can make it more relevant to what I want to teach. And I can make it more readable for them and not, 1800s, 1900s language. So I kind of had to start over. The same stories, but ones that were open so I could actually use them and share them. That was something that was really important to me. I think part of the problem is, as teachers, is yes, we are constantly overworked and we're reinventing the wheel. We're all just doing the same stuff on our own. And I wanted to do the hard work so that maybe some other teachers didn't have to, that they had these resources that they could use, and they can edit and they can change for their own purposes as well. So I basically redid everything from scratch. The activities and the assignments and the exercises were my own. If you are familiar with the COCA corpus, I used that to edit the text to make sure that the vocabulary frequency was there so that they're getting the same words and they're learning more frequent vocabulary that's useful and academic vocabulary, even though it's in the literature. I used the Cipher level checker to make sure that it was the correct level that I want for this textbook. It's at most of the readings are like B1, B2. It's pretty advanced. And like I said before, they're short stories. I just collected them and did it piece by piece. Each reading, okay, here's our exercises. Here's what we're going to do. We read the story, we do the exercises, and then I make the lesson for the next story. So I just did it piece by piece and put it together. So yeah, it's I hope it's not too overwhelming. It's just a step-by-step process, you know, as usual for teachers, where we have outcomes that we want. We're trying to find some materials that can fit those outcomes. And then we make assessments, we make activities based on, you know, what we need from those outcomes. And like I mentioned before, I wanted students to know, hey, I made this material. If you find anything, you know, that's not correct, or you think it's boring, or you don't understand, or something in the exercises are confusing, yeah, please tell me and I can fix it. There's not a lot of time. Usually when you're using a textbook and it's confusing, the teacher can't fix it. So I think students really appreciated and enjoyed being a part of that process. And then, yes, if we did find something that we needed to change, as soon as class was over, I changed it before I forget. And then at the end of the term, you know, I ask students, you know, for feedback and like thinking about changes I need to make. And then during the school break, that's when I would do some tweaking, and then I published it in press books. So I think one thing I wanted to talk about is like publishing. Like Sharon mentioned, you can just have like a WordPress site, put up your PowerPoints, your Word documents, Google Drive documents, I think are good. I don't think you have to do anything super fancy to publish your work. And hopefully you can also put it in our OER repository that we will have in the future as well.
Hey, Charity, I know that we had the question earlier about if we could show them how to search for OER. Do we want to choose one of the repositories you mentioned earlier and just kind of show them?
Were they wanting a repository or just the Google?
I don't remember. Was it Grazia? I can't remember who had that request. I think they just wanted, yes, I did. Okay. I think they just wanted us to show them a search of OER. I mean, we could do it in Google, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're saying please. So.
Should we let Charity do that?
Yep.
Okay, Charity, you're up.
Oh no. Okay.
Oh, pressure's on, Charity. Oh God.
Okay.
And then if we can have a few minutes for some takeaways, that would be great. We have 6 minutes left until the end of the presentation.
Okay. All right. Can everybody see my beautiful Galaxy Google?
Beautiful.
So let's see. Like a few weeks ago, I was trying to find like a ESL writing textbook or something. So I go to the search and then I go here to settings, advanced search, and then yes, all the way at the bottom, this usage rights. And sometimes it shows Creative Commons and sometimes it'll show this, but it's basically talking about the Creative Commons licenses. I want to be able to share it with my students, and especially I definitely want to be able to modify it. So I'm going to choose that license, go to advanced search, and then, yeah, I think one of these was the one, and I think this is.
That one looks like one.
Yeah, one that I use. So I found it, and then, like I said before, confirm the license, make sure it's got a Creative Commons license, and I see that here. So yeah, sometimes depending on your topic, you might have to sift a little bit, but I feel like it's like when you're panning for gold. Whenever I sift, even if it takes a long time, I always find, eventually I'll find that piece of gold. So
little nugget.
Can you explain that license in there? to them?
This is a CC BY NC. So that means if I use it, I cannot make money off of it. So don't sell it. I think that's easy enough to do. And then BY means I need to give attribution and say, where did I get this resource?
Can you change it? Can you edit it?
Can I edit it? Yes. As long as
default.
as long as it does not have the ND, the no derivatives license, then the no derivatives means I can't edit it. So in my opinion, those are the worst. I need the ability to edit it. And that does also mean if it's no derivatives, if it is a whole textbook, you have to share the whole thing to your students. You can't just share one chapter or one paragraph. So yeah,
one of the maybe the times that you would need non-derivative is, for instance, for grad students, right? If you're doing your PhD and you would like to share your data of your thesis, for instance, and you want to make a Creative Commons OER for people to use in the research, but non-derivative
you got it.
Word to say means that you can't change it because you're gonna mess up my data, my research, right? My whole thesis. That's but otherwise, as for ELT teachers and materials that's for teaching, it would be the least welcome as per se in the OER field, right? Because the whole idea is to share and to save time for yourself. If there's something ready in there that you can use, why not use it? And if there's something ready that I can partially edit it, that would also save you time, then why not edit and modify and use this? So at the ND part is not fun. So if you have the CC BY, give me credit for the effort, that I've done, but feel free to modify it by default if it doesn't say ND, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And ND has its place there. I think there are materials that, maybe the author doesn't want anyone to be able to change it. So.
All right, 2 more minutes. Lynn,
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the presentation. And I'm sure that we will start using EORs and find them helpful. So for the last 2 minutes, I just have this question. I'm just starting to connect the dots myself, and I'm sure that things will become clearer as the night goes on because we have 2 more presentations on the topic. But if there's an action that you would like teachers and leaders to do within next week or next month, what would it be regarding OER?
In action?
Mm-hmm.
Is to get together. It's all about collaboration. You get together, you see what you have. It depends on the purpose, right? If you are a leader, if you want to have a repository for your own in here, for yourself, you need to get together. You need to be able to, first of all, educate, those emergent leaders, as I mentioned earlier, about the terminology itself, about the OER movement itself, what is needed, how to be done. And then reaching out for the material, the collection of the material for changing of, if you look at the TRC, for instance, if you look at the TRC, it does have material, but they're not CC common, they're not licensed. And so it would be so hard. We thought about it to, kind of start from there and change into OER. But since members are not always members, they go and come, and we don't have in the database. So the email addresses of people to reach out to them, to kind of ask them to have permission, to use that or to have them resubmit. But that's something that you can start now, right? To have your own system, you need the process in place. How are you going to vet? How are you going to collect? And how are you going to vet them? How are you going to organize them? And you need education, first of all, for people to know how to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a very important step is that the very CC license thing, which seems to be very difficult, but it's a matter of a picture that you take and you edit, right? We can talk about that. Anyway, it's 8:30 right now. We have more sessions lined up. Thank you again, James and Lynn, the ANPC, for hosting us. I mean, and putting this forward. We really appreciate that. And the leaders, think about it.
And I put the link to our slides within the chat as well.
Thank you so much. And we will be sure to send out the list of the links that appear in the chat to participants later on. Thank you.